Okay, let's keep working with decimals. Today we are still adding decimals, and we're converting them to fraction form. Looks like some of these are already in fraction form. And the directions say find the sum, means add them together. Convert tenths to hundredths as needed and write your answer as decimals. So two things, we got to make these tenths hundredths again, and then we got to remember to write our answer as a decimal, okay? So 2 1/10 plus 3 hundredths. Same thing we did yesterday. To make the tenths hundreds, we just add a 0. Super easy. So 2 10 hundredths plus 3 hundredths is going to be what? It's going to be 2 13 hundredths. Write your answer as a decimal. 2 13 hundredths. 2 1/10 plus 5 3 hundredths. 1/10, make it hundredths by adding zeros. It's 10 hundredths. Going to add our whole numbers. 2 plus 5 is 7. Add our fractions. 10 hundredths plus 3 hundredths is 13 hundredths. Got to write it as a decimal then. 7 13 hundredths. I kind of like these lessons this week. They're not that bad, are they? I don't think so, anyway. 3 24 hundredths plus 7 tenths. We've got to make this hundredths. Makes it 70 hundredths. So 3 plus 0 would be 3. 24 hundredths plus 70 hundredths is 94 hundredths. So 3 94 hundredths is a decimal. Looks like 3 94 hundredths. Okay. Moving right along. I always say that, don't I, on math? Sorry. I guess I get in bad habits. Next one, 3 24 hundredths plus 8 7 tenths. Let's make the 7 tenths hundredths. 70 hundredths. Add our whole numbers first. 3 plus 8 is 11. Add our fractions. 24 hundredths plus 70 hundredths is 94 hundredths. So as a decimal, it's going to look like 11 94 hundredths. 6 9 tenths, that's going to be 90 hundredths. Add our whole numbers. 6 plus 1 is 7. 91 hundredths plus 10 100ths is 100 100ths. Well, 100 100ths is what? It's a 1. So what's 7 plus 1? Our answer is 8. And if you want to put 8.0, that's fine. Okay. 9 9 tenths. 9 tenths is going to be 90 hundredths. 9 plus 2 is 11. 90 hundredths plus 45 hundredths is 135 100ths. I knew they would make us decompose eventually. Blah. 135 100ths is 100 100ths and 35 hundredths. Now, watch carefully. I've got 1 and I've got 11. I've got to put those two together. 11 and one more would be 12. Then we got to write it as a decimal, remember, 35 35 hundredths. Did you see that? So when we decompose, we've done this before when we were doing fractions. If we decompose and find an additional 1, we've got to add it to the whole number. So that 11 and one more makes it a 12. Okay, next one, 2 4 tenths. Make it 40 100ths. Okay, 2 plus 8, adding my whole numbers first, is 10. 40 100ths plus 90 100ths is 130 100ths. Decompose 100 100ths and 30 100ths. So I have another whole number to add right here. 10 and one more would be 11. And then I have, whoa, almost wrote as a fraction. 11 and 30 hundredths. Okay. 6 37 hundredths and 7 7 tenths. 7 tenths need to make it hundredths. 70 hundredths. Add whole numbers first. 6 plus 7 is 13. 37 hundredths plus 7 hundredths is 107 hundredths. Decompose 100 hundredths and 7 hundredths. We've got a whole number to add right there. 13 and 1 whole more would be 14 and 7 hundredths. Do we have some more to work? I believe we do. I believe we've got a bunch today. This time it says, solve by rewriting the number sentence in fraction form. Record your answer in decimal form. Okay, so we got to write it in fraction form and then put it back in decimal form. 6 and 4/10, 5 and 3/10. 6 plus 5 is 11. 4/10 plus 3/10 is 7/10. 11 and 7/10. We've got tenths instead of 100ths that time, don't we? This time we've got hundredths. 6 and 62 hundredths. And 2 98 hundredths. Okay. 6 plus 2 is 8. Now 98 and 62, I'm going to make sure I add that right. 8 plus 2 is 0. It's 10. Put 0 down, carry your 1. 1 plus 9 is 10, plus 6 is 16, so 160 hundredths. Decompose 100 100ths and 60 hundredths. So 8, and then I have one more would be, we have to write these in decimal form, don't we? 9 and 60 hundredths. Okay. 2 and 1/10. And 94 hundredths. Got to make these tenths hundredths first, don't we? 1/10 is 10 hundredths. Let's add 2 plus, I don't have a whole number there, so it's 2. 10 100ths plus 94 hundredths is 104 hundredths. Decompose the improper fraction. 100 100ths and 4 100ths. I've got another whole to add. 2 and 1 more would be 3 and 4 hundredths. Couple more here. 2 and 1/10 plus 5 and 94 hundredths. Okay, make the tenths hundredths. 1/10 is 10 hundredths. And now we add 2 plus 5 is 7. 10 hundredths plus 94 hundredths is 104 hundredths. Decompose 100 hundredths. 4 hundredths. I'm going to add this 1. 7 and 1 more would be 8 and 4 hundredths. 5 and 7/10. And 4 and 92 hundredths. Whoops. Decimal, Mr. Hilton. Write a fraction. All right, so let's make the 7/10 70 hundredths first. 70 plus 92. What am I doing? 5 plus 4 is 9. Slow down. 70 plus 92 is 162 hundredths. After a while, can you just look at these and say, I know it's going to be 1 and 62? Yeah. If you can just do it in your head, that's fine. For those of you who can't, you can decompose 100 100ths and 62 hundredths. This adds another 1 to the 9, making it a 10 and 62 hundredths. All right. There's 3 more, but I believe you've got it by now if you got it at all, okay? So I'll let you get started on today's assignment, and I will see you at the meet.